Local resident Ron Ray, a retired policeman of Tip City, is an avid car enthusiast who appreciates history. Originally growing up and signing on to the police force, Ron has deep ties to the state of New York. After owning a few, Ron developed a love for the Chevy El Camino. On the hunt for another, he discovered a vehicle that has ties to both the functionality of the car and his love for New York.
I always had an El Camino. I think I had 3 of them while I was here. I kept buying El Caminos. One I saw a better one, I would trade the one in and get it. But I had 3 El Caminos, and then I sold the last one to Arbogast. This friend told me, he said, I've been looking on the internet and there's a Cadillac El Camino for sale. I said, a Cadillac El Camino? He said, yeah. And he said, look up and you can find the guy's name. Well, the guy lived in Texas. So I wrote to him and I said, do you have a Cadillac El Camino? And he said, no, it's not an El Camino. It was used as a flower car. I said, oh, really? I knew what it was because they used them in New York. And then it was a Cadillac. And I said, well, yeah, I'd be interested in that. And we negotiated over the phone. And I asked him, I said, well, how am I going to get it up here? I can't leave work and get down there. And he says, well, you could hire one of those companies. They'll pick it up here and deliver it. And I said, that's just adding another $3,000 to the bill, and I don't want to do that. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, for $500, he said, I have one of those closed-in trailers that I haul cars around. And he said, I'll load it up and I'll bring it to you. I said, you bring it to me and I'll buy you dinner while you're here. So he called me up one day and he said, I'm leaving now and I'll be in Tip City probably tomorrow afternoon or evening. I said, great, I'll be here and I'll have a check ready for you. So he brought it up and parked it there in front of the house on Dow Street and backed it out. I mean, it was all polished and everything. He backed it out and Suanna just jumped in it and said, yeah, this is it. This is your car.
After some research, Ron discovered his Cadillac was no ordinary car. The car was one of 18 Cadillacs used in a funeral motorcade for notorious crime boss John Gotti.
Our next story is about a man whose face you've probably seen dozens of times. They call him the Dapper Don. His name is John Gotti. The feds say he's the most powerful criminal in America, the brutal godfather of one of the ruling families of the mafia. But to his admirers, and he has them, John Gotti's a cult figure, tough and proud and rich. His world is filled with secret meetings and custom cars and fancy clothes. It's also a world of cops and crooks. Through it all, Gotti moves with the strength and silence of a shark.
John Gotti was a notorious American mobster who became the boss of the Gambino crime family, one of the most powerful and influential mafia organizations in New York City. He was born on October 27, 1940, in the Bronx, New York. Gotti rose through the ranks of organized crime and became known for his involvement in various illegal activities, including extortion, racketeering, loan sharking, and murder. He gained widespread notoriety for his role in the assassination of Paul Castellano, the previous boss of the Gambino family, in 1985. After Castellano's death, Gotti took over as boss of the family and quickly became known as the Teflon Don because of his ability to avoid conviction in several high-profile cases, often due to the fear and silence of witnesses. However, his luck ran out in the early 1990s. In 1992, Gotti was convicted of murder, racketeering, and other charges, largely due to the testimony of his underboss, Sammy the Bull, who turned state's witness against him. Gotti was sentenced to life in prison. His life and criminal activities became the subject of numerous books, movies, and documentaries. cementing his place as one of the most infamous figures in the history of organized crime in America. John Gotti passed away on June 10, 2002, after a 5-year battle of throat cancer at the age of 61. His funeral was held on June 15th, which included a massive funeral procession totaling over 100 cars. The procession moved through the streets of New York, passing by his home, and then Burgeon Hunt and Fish Club, finally arriving at the St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens. It is said that over 300 onlookers met the procession at the cemetery. Each Cadillac in the motorcade displayed a different floral arrangement showing either an interest or favorite possession of John's. Ron's Cadillac is shown here with the arrangement of John's beloved horse. The car is a 1989 Cadillac Barone that has been modified into a funeral car. Ron gives us some information on how this process is done.
To give you background on that car, Barone, Cadillac Barone, the biggest car that they made back then. They used it for limousines and stuff. What they did was, there were companies around that made flower cars, hearses, and ambulances. And they would doctor all those cars up and make them into what they are. So they doctored this 4-door car into a flower car, and they put it on their lot, and the woman in New Jersey bought the car for her company. Well, what they do is they leave all the 4 doors on the car, but they cut off all the posts, and then they cut the top off. Well, but only half of the top. They keep the front part with the windshield and everything on, and then halfway they cut it. Then the back part of it, they cut that off. I mean, this is all measurements and everything, and they weld it onto the front part. So now you got a little cab right there. Then the back part, they've made up ahead of time in stainless steel. And that's what that is. And then they put a drain in it, so when the flowers, lost water, it would get in there and they can drain it out without rusting anything or whatever. Oh, it's an easy driving car. It's got air shocks on it and everything. You can go over the railroad track and not even feel it. And when I use her car, the Buick, and drive over it, well, it just rattles your teeth because it's so long and it's got such a large wheel area there, and it's got the air shocks on it plus the regular shocks. It just glides over those things. I've taken it to a few car shows, and I think there's some stickers in there, when you go in, they give you it. But a lot of people look at it, but they're a little bit leery of it because of what it was and all.